couple of years ago, I built a floating TV console for our living room. It's worked pretty well, but I've had an ongoing problem with it. I didn't add any good ventilation for the Xbox, and it was overheating. So about a year ago, I started playing with Kumiko, which is a centuries-old Japanese woodworking technique for making intricate geometric patterns and shapes. I used that to change out the console doors to provide some ventilation, while still hiding the stuff on the inside. It helped, but it wasn't quite enough. So I'm going back to Kumiko to add some vents in the top of the console, which will mean cutting some large holes in an otherwise perfectly fine piece of furniture. If I screw those up, the console will be pretty much ruined. First, I need to make the Kumiko vents that I'll inlay into the top. So I'm going to make a triangular grid that will be held together with a three-way lap joint. That means cutting two different strip patterns. The first one has two cuts on either side that are 1/3 of the way through the strip. Then the corresponding piece has only one cut on one side that is 2/3 of the way through the strip. Each joint gets two of the single cuts and one double cut. When everything goes to plan, there aren't any gaps, and the pieces sit nice and flush with each other. Once those pieces are done, I can assemble the grid. And while those dry, I can start cutting the pieces to fill the grid in. The ends will need to be trimmed to specific angles to fit into the grid, so I need to cut a 30-degree bevel on one end of these pieces and a 60-degree bevel on the other end. To make sure I get the angles right every time, I use these Kumiko jigs. The ends are cut to the angles I need, and they have an adjustable stop block to help me dial in the right length. Once all 48 pieces are glued in, I give them a light sanding to make sure everything is nice and flat. Then I cut off the excess from the edges. Now I just need to clear out the console before I make a huge mess in here. Okay, now I've done it. The point of no return. I cut out the rough shapes with my jigsaw, and now I've revealed my dirty little secret. This console is just MDF with walnut veneer, and man, this stuff makes a mess. But it cuts really easily, and it's super stable and flat. So, pros and cons. I'm using some thin plywood to create a template around the diamond shape of the Kumiko vents. Then I'll use this plush trim bit to cut around the side and clean them up. The bearing will ride on the side of the plywood and give me nice straight edges. Now that I've established that inside edge, I can reset my template pieces to cut out for the exact shape of the vents, making sure everything is nice and tight. I forgot to film it, but I've switched to this smaller templating bit. Since it's exactly 1/2 inch long, it won't cut all the way through the MDF like the last one, and it will leave that support ledge that I'm wanting. The fit on this was really tight, and I'm really happy with the way they turned out. And I didn't ruin my TV console, so that's a plus. Thanks for watching. See me in the next one.